And you see in the news, I saw on BBC World, I was staying in a hotel in Germany, I was watching BBC World, because it's sometimes important to see what they're pumping out to the masses to do your research. And they say, oh, special report, this is a kind of nice artist, Chinese artist, she's 29 years old, and she's a product of the one-child state, and let's speak to her. And the interview started with the BBC reporter saying, yeah, a lot of people in the West are critical of the one-child policy because it might not be the government's place to tell people how many children they can have or how to run their lives. And this Chinese girl, she's like, oh no, look at me, I'm a product of the one-child policy, and there's so many benefits. My parents put their full attention into me, and I'm a girl. And so many people think in the West that in China they kill girls because they want boys. It was just a pure propaganda piece saying, oh, it's not so bad in China, we're rich, nice people. So the Chinese are the biggest victims at the moment. Like, can you imagine me with my megaphone going into Tiananmen Square, shouting out against Mao Zedong and the kind of Communist Party? I'd be disappeared in a second. But it just goes to show the hypocritical, money-worshipping psychopathy that you talk about, that we have people like Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, David Cameron in this country, even in the past, Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, Margaret Thatcher, all these people talking about freedom and free speech, yet they're doing all this trade with China, moving all the industries out to China, supporting China, helping the Chinese economy grow by 10% a year. And freedom is almost a bad word in China. They've got the firewall on the internet. So that was my big rant against Chinese oppression, and I think a revolutionary leader will sprout from that country and lead those people to some nice fractal disorder away from their kind of slave state. And the reason I say that, because in China now, as we sit here and talk, there's 30 million more men than girls because they've aborted all the girls because people want sons. So 30 million men, fair enough, they might be living in a nice kind of, oh, I've got a job and so forth. They're not allowed to travel. They're not allowed to be free. They're not going to find a girlfriend. Masturbation gets boring. They're going to probably pick up arms and fight the government. And an army of 30 million angry men who realize that they've been fucked every single day of their lives by a state which has treated them like economic units and slaves in a factory. Yeah, these people, so 30 million men without any hope of anything, like freedom, I think will create a revolutionary force. So this is a message to the Chinese government, you one-party state piece of shit.
But you're also looking at a situation where, when you've got a situation where men become incredibly sexually frustrated, it creates a situation where there's a real danger to women. There was a situation, I believe it was in Egypt, not that long ago, during the Sugar Fest, where women were being raped on the street, and attacked by gangs of men in their 20s and 30s. Because you can't get married until you can afford to get married, and because the economy is in the shits. Yeah. There are lots of men who have no other outlet. You can't have premarital sex. You can't afford to get married. And so you're in a situation where, that leads to, I'm not condoning it in any way, but certainly it leads to, this buildup of negative energy and this buildup of sexual energy. And this is one of the most obvious means of manipulation is the control of the sexual energy.
Exactly, and religion does that so well. And Egypt has become a much more conservative Muslim country. It used to be quite westernized, quite free, but now it's. I've seen reports where, like 30 years ago in Cairo, no one wore the headscarf, the veil, but now pretty much every single woman. But that's kind of more complicated reflection of the West and the kind of rebellion, saying we're not McDonald's eating Westerners, so let's wear the headscarf. But yeah, like get an animal, like a dog, put it in a cage, poke it, torture it, deprive it of sex, and then put it in the living room with the children. That dog isn't going to act normally. And it's the same with humans as mammals. Fill their mind with kind of lies, superstition, religion, and bullshit. Deprive them of women, make them feel guilty, tell them it's their own fault, and they will react badly, and then you get rape problems and all these other things. And this is why I hark back to indigenous natural living, because I'm sure we had these problems in the golden age of living indigenously, but these things were dealt with on a very smaller scale, and people had, I think, a bit more flexibility to be who they were, because they were in harmony with who they were, in harmony with one another, and in harmony with nature. And everything we see now, from the states to the concrete jungles, to the jobs, to the religions, to the corporations, is all anti-nature. It's a kind of binary organizing, a machine-like organizing of reality, which as we can see, it doesn't work. It doesn't work because it's going against nature, and the ultimate system is nature. And everything we're doing, and your examples, it doesn't surprise me in Egypt of men going out in rape gangs to get girls because they're so angry. They probably don't even see these girls as human beings. This is a bit of flesh. They think, I've been deprived of this my whole life. Fuck it, this is my turn now. Spread your legs and take the rape. So, yeah.
And the other thing, you were talking about the Chinese one-child policy. We've been led to believe that there is a massive overpopulation problem. And the thing is not so much that there's overpopulation, but that the population has been jammed together on 7% of the land, and 80% of it is owned by people that won't allow you on it. And there's no problem feeding the people in the country when the Queen doesn't own all the deer.
Yeah, exactly. It's just another big lie. I mean, all you need to do is get on an airplane and fly over any region of the world, and you'll see how much space there is. There's so much space, and with the technology we have, we could feed every man, woman, and child on this planet many times over every day until everyone's super healthy and super fit. But in order to keep the slave system going, they need to give the illusion of overpopulation, of scarcity, and all these things to keep the fighting going, and it's really, really sad. So you get people in the West now talking about one-child policy, how it's a good thing. You get, Ted Turner's, Bill Gates, all these people talking about, Planned Parenthood. Ted Turner loves the one-child policy in China. He's on record. And he comes out very openly and says, yeah, we need to reduce the world's population by 90%. But this is tied in with the awakening. It's tied in with the internet, the turning of the ages, the fact that we are receiving more cosmic signals from the universe reminding us that, well, hold on, you are gods yourselves as human beings. You are gods in biological spacesuits. And because we are waking up and this control system is evaporating, just look at the evidence. The mainstream media falling apart all over the world. Like there's still people who support it, but people are starting to see through the bullshit. So as we wake up, philosophically and spiritually, the control systems need to keep us terrified and kind of tell us that we're a danger to ourselves. And that's why they want a microchipped, much reduced population, because it's much less likely. If they know where everyone is at every single moment and they know what you've got in your pockets because it's all part of the Internet of Things, it'll be much harder to start a revolution and to change things. But I'm very optimistic that, we're very lucky to be alive now, because as kind of spiritual warriors, we have a mission, we have something to do, we have a very definite target of our energies and our spirits, and there's nothing more fun than doing good. And the best way to do good is to expose evil and stop it happening. It's the best way. Yeah,
the Native Americans talk about the rainbow warriors who come not to fight but to teach. Even then, they knew that all of the peoples of the world were going to be getting together. And these stories are ancient. Each of these groups of Native Americans are often holders of a certain type of knowledge. So, for instance, the Mayans were the calendars. They were the keeper of the calendars. And so recently they've begun to have these meetings so that they can bring the stories from the different groups together. And that's very, very interesting. And somehow some of this is also tied into the crystal skulls, which I find quite fascinating, because those are an enigma as well.
Yeah, and they're so well produced that no one, not even with modern technology, could we make those crystal skulls as precisely engineered as they are. So
and this is another of the big lies that we've been sold, that that we are the pinnacle of human history, and any sort of archaeological find that is anomalous, that doesn't fit their little picture of how human history has, like the Antikytherium device. Like many of these things, if it doesn't fit, then it's got to be covered up. It's got to be, hidden, because it's not suiting their agenda. I mean, there's evidence to suggest that there were nuclear wars in the past, before recorded history. The Sumerians talk about, the god Marduk and, his brothers and his uncles fighting, and using weapons against each other, and not realizing that the ill wind would blow in their direction and destroy their own cities.
Yeah.
And yet it's happening again. They think that they can poison us and poison the environment and then survive it, and it's insane.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's part of the whole, again, coming back to how people are controlled and kept in a kind of very base 5 cents reality is by, you hide the history from them. If people knew their correct history, they wouldn't stand for what's happening now. People, the mainstream people, your average man or woman on the street, I've interviewed people, and people actually want more CCTV cameras. They want more government control. They want our troops to be fighting terrorists because they think it's the best it can be. They think the world is a dangerous place, dog eat dog, and in fact it's not. It's a predatory world of a small group of people fighting the people. And any single war, when you really think about it, it's not really nations against each other. It's always rich people financing groups of ignorant people to go and kill each other. It's always a war against the people. And part of my mission on Earth, I think, is to figure out who's doing it. Because I don't think it's the people, I don't think it's the Rockefellers or the Rothschilds themselves doing it. I think they're getting controlled or told or possessed to do it from somewhere else. And I would love to know the kind of intricate workings of this reality to find out, the things I've said in this interview. Is it part of the video game, like to fight for freedom and to do all these things? Because I suspect it is. I really do.
It's an interesting thought. I mean, I definitely think that, that the human race is in, need of a paradigm shift in a huge way. And I also find that, you're talking about those that are the ones that are on display as our so-called leaders. And that these folks are some of the most unsavory characters of the lot, and the reason that they are is because those that are controlling them have got to have, a videotape of them, raping little boys, or the Holly Greig case is a brilliant example.
Yeah.
And if they've got this blackmail material on them, then they can say, okay, this law needs to be passed.
And the people will do it.
Yeah, for fear of exposure.
Yeah. So, Megan, do you think we can save the world through a or not, maybe it's happening quickly, but do you think we're doing enough as kind of whatever we call ourselves to kind of save the world? Because the kind of control mechanism of microchipping, depopulation, and sterilization seems to be happening very quickly. And I've been in this game for about 1.5 years, like directly in it, and I sometimes worry that we're not doing enough, that we're not fighting the system enough in a way, because there's more than enough information on the internet now. Like I've been doing it for 1.5 years, David Icke's been doing it for 20 years, Alex Jones for 20 years, Jordan Maxwell
for 50.
For 500 years. Sorry, Jordan.
Oh, poor Jordan.
And,
we love you.
Yeah, and I think if people are sitting on the fence, as I did for so many years, going, oh, well, yeah, I listened to Rage Against the Machine when I was a kid, and always kind of was attracted to kind of revolutionary figures in history, people who kind of stuck up a middle finger to the authorities and fought their bit. I sometimes wonder, like, I need to stay optimistic, but this is the big thing. How can we shock people out of the slave state? How do we... Does it need to get worse before it gets better?
Maybe it's a matter of shocking them, but in a way I think it's more a matter of inspiring them. It's a matter of inspiring them to go and do themselves. So Max Egan out in Australia is a brilliant example, because Max Egan and David Icke have been my inspirations, not in terms of the knowledge, because the first time I read The Biggest Secret, with the exception of the bit about the lizards, I was shocked that somebody else had come to the same conclusions that I had come to. I thought, brilliant, here's another human being that sussed it, because when you first start coming, you think you're alone in the world when you see these patterns and you see, this control, and then you realize, it's not just David or Jordan, but, I don't know if you've heard of Anthony J. Hilder.
Of course, I met him.
Oh, isn't he lovely? Love
him.
Love him. Fantastic bloke. He put those Illuminati albums out back in the 70s. And, I think that it's a matter of inspiring people to do more. So that, if you can wake people up, that's great. But if you can take people that are already beginning to wake up or already awake and inspire them to do something about it. And I think that you do. You know, I think that you really do inspire people. I mean, if I didn't think that you were inspiring, I certainly wouldn't have, hauled 100 pounds worth of luggage all the way out to bloody Cambridge this weekend, and whatnot.